They told us it was an accident. They told us Malcolm Jamal Warner was a hero, a loving father who sacrificed his life to save his daughter from drowning. The world mourned, tears were shed, tributes poured in. But what if I told you? Everything we knew was a lie. The truth didn't surface until the second autopsy. That's when doctors made a chilling discovery: poison in Malcolm's body. This wasn't a tragic accident. This wasn't fate. This was a calculated, deliberate murder. Imagine the pain of his mother, Pamela Warner, who refused to believe the first story, who begged for answers when no one would listen. Imagine being shown a body that didn't even match Malcolm's fingerprints. A stranger's corpse presented as her son. The horror. The betrayal. And then came the whispers. A witness claiming Malcolm was seen alive. After the day he was pronounced dead. A government doctor disappearing overnight. His laptop and phone wiped from existence. And a secret 400-page manuscript that Malcolm was writing, exposing the darkest secrets of Hollywood, gone forever. But the most haunting of all? A leaked audio message from Malcolm himself. His trembling voice saying, "If you're hearing this, it means I didn't make it. They're coming for me." This is not just tragedy. This is a cover-up. A conspiracy wrapped in poison and silence. And the question tearing through millions of hearts tonight is, why was Malcolm Jamal Warner silenced? Was it his secrets? His book? Or something so much bigger? Something powerful enough to erase the truth? Tonight, we uncover what they never wanted the world to know. The news shook everyone to their core. Malcolm Jamal Warner, a man who had grown up in front of millions of eyes, was suddenly gone, and the way he died was far from ordinary. At first, headlines simply read that his death was unexpected. The kind of word that makes people pause, but also leaves enough room for the media to brush it off as just another tragedy. But for those who knew him, who followed his career, and who had seen his charm, discipline, and spirit on screen and off, the word unexpected didn't sit right. Something about it felt off, almost like a shadow trying to cover a larger storm. In the hours and days that followed, silence hung heavy. Family members avoided cameras, friends whispered but didn't want to be quoted, and fans searched desperately online for clarity. What happened to Malcolm? Why did someone so vibrant, so full of energy, suddenly collapse and never rise again? The first autopsy was rushed, like many celebrity cases are. Doctors pointed to possible natural causes. Stress, exhaustion, maybe even an underlying heart condition. It sounded neat, too neat. But then came Pamela Warner, his mother, who refused to let her son's death be sealed away with convenient explanations. Pamela had always been sharp, protective, and unwilling to settle. She demanded a second autopsy, done independently, away from the glare of Hollywood, away from officials who might want to bury the truth. And that's when everything cracked open. The second autopsy revealed something chilling: foreign substances inside Malcolm's body. The type that had no business being there. The type that screamed foul play. It wasn't a simple overdose. It wasn't alcohol. It wasn't anything recreational. The toxicology pointed to poison. Something calculated. Something planted. Something intentional. Pamela's worst fears were confirmed. Her son hadn't just passed away. He had been taken. When this revelation reached the public, shockwaves ran across social media. #JusticeForMalcolm started trending. Fans began connecting dots, diving into his past interviews, his recent statements, and even the projects he had been involved in before his death. It wasn't long before conspiracy theories started spinning like wildfire. Had Malcolm been silenced for what he knew? Had he crossed paths with the wrong people? Was it connected to Hollywood politics, personal relationships, or something darker? The whispers only grew louder. Pamela herself stepped forward with a trembling voice but unwavering strength. She didn't just cry for her son, she demanded answers. She revealed that in the weeks before his death, Malcolm had seemed uneasy. He had confided in her that he felt watched. He had complained about sudden health changes, headaches, dizziness, moments of fatigue he couldn't explain. She thought it was just stress, the price of fame. But now, with the toxicology report in her hands, everything made horrifying sense. "He was trying to tell me something," Pamela said in an interview. "But I didn't realize until it was too late." The poison theory brought a storm of attention. Experts began weighing in. Toxicologists explained that certain substances can mimic natural death if carefully dosed. They leave faint traces, sometimes invisible in rushed autopsies. But when examined closely, those traces scream murder. Investigators now faced a disturbing possibility. Someone close to Malcolm had access to him, knew his habits, and had slipped something deadly into his system. But who? Malcolm's inner circle was suddenly under the microscope. Friends, colleagues, even family connections. Anyone who had shared meals with him, anyone who had been around him in his last days. Pamela's demand for justice wasn't just emotional, it was personal. She wanted every single person near her son questioned. She wanted timelines reconstructed. She wanted every message, call, and meeting re-examined. Meanwhile, fans revisited old footage of Malcolm. In one interview, just weeks before his passing, he had spoken cryptically about people who smile in your face but don't want to see you shine. At the time, it sounded like a casual remark, maybe even a joke. But in hindsight, it felt haunting. Was he hinting at enemies lurking in the background? Another clip surfaced where Malcolm was asked about Hollywood secrets. His response was sharp, almost warning. "If you know too much, you better know how to protect yourself." That clip went viral after his death. Many now believed Malcolm had been sending warnings, subtle but intentional, that he felt danger closing in. Pamela's grief transformed into resolve. She began working with private investigators, determined to peel back every layer of deception. She wanted proof, undeniable proof, that her son had been poisoned. And with each passing day, she uncovered more. Bank statements, unusual transactions, people in Malcolm's circle who suddenly went quiet. A dinner meeting days before his collapse that no one wanted to discuss. Even text messages that showed Malcolm himself growing suspicious of someone he trusted. The deeper Pamela dug, the more dangerous it became. People warned her to stop. Leave it alone. Don't stir the pot. But she refused. She had already lost her son. What more could they take from her? And just as Pamela prepared to take her findings to the public, just as she was ready to put names to the whispers, something even more shocking emerged from the autopsy. The poison wasn't random. It was rare, exotic, and incredibly difficult to obtain. Experts said it wasn't the kind of thing you find in a corner store. It wasn't even something you'd stumble across in everyday medical supplies. This was a controlled substance, often linked to espionage and high-level criminal operations. That revelation changed everything. This wasn't just about one person with a grudge. This was bigger. This was organized. Pamela, holding back tears, told reporters, "They didn't just kill my son. They silenced him. And I need the world to know why." The press conference ended with cameras flashing, reporters shouting, and the public more confused and more enraged than ever. By now, the story had left Hollywood gossip territory and entered the realm of true crime horror. The FBI reportedly took an interest. Anonymous insiders claimed there were active discussions about opening a federal investigation. But before any official word could come out, Pamela made one last, chilling statement. "Malcolm told me, if anything ever happened to him, I should look at the people closest to him first." Her words cut through the silence like a knife. And with that, the world braced for the storm that was about to come. The revelation of toxic substances inside Malcolm Jamal Warner's body didn't just open wounds, it poured salt into them. Pamela Warner, his mother, was already reeling from years of unanswered questions, but now she had confirmation. Something was not right about her son's death. The second autopsy results weren't vague, they pointed to deliberate poisoning. Almost immediately, whispers turned into theories. and theories spiraled into accusations. People close to Malcolm started questioning the timeline of his final days. Who had access to him? Who stood to gain from his passing? And more importantly, why had the first autopsy missed what the second uncovered? Pamela recalled conversations with Malcolm just weeks before his death. He had complained about fatigue, headaches, and an unusual metallic taste in his mouth.
I ain't gonna leave him out. I'm just real like this, because, be throwing rocks and hiding their hand, right? They be throwing rocks and hiding their hand.
At the time, no one thought much of it. After all, celebrities live exhausting lives, balancing careers, travel, and personal issues. But now, those symptoms matched classic signs of poisoning. The details in the toxicology report were chilling. Traces of a rare compound, one not easily obtained without specific connections, were found in his bloodstream. Experts agreed, this wasn't an accidental overdose, nor was it environmental exposure. This was purposeful. Someone had introduced it into Malcolm's system. As investigators re-examined the case, their attention shifted to Malcolm's inner circle. Like many stars, he had friends, colleagues, and associates who benefited from his fame. But success often attracts both admiration and envy. Pamela pushed for answers, demanding authorities to revisit every piece of evidence from the original investigation. Who was in Malcolm's home during his final days? Who prepared his meals? Who handled his drinks? These questions suddenly became critical. One name kept surfacing, a longtime associate who had access to Malcolm's schedule and home. Their relationship, once described as close, had recently shown cracks. Disputes over money, creative control, and personal disagreements were now being re-evaluated under a darker lens. Could this associate have had a motive? When news of the autopsy results leaked, fans erupted. Social media became a storm of shock, grief, and anger. Hashtags calling for justice for Malcolm trended worldwide. Some supporters insisted this was proof of a cover-up, while others demanded high-profile names be questioned. Entertainment journalists scrambled to revisit old interviews, searching for signs. In one particular interview, Malcolm had spoken cryptically about betrayal, about how not everyone smiling at you is your friend. At the time, audiences brushed it off as general wisdom. But now, in hindsight, those words cut deep, almost like a warning. Despite the chaos, Pamela held herself with quiet strength. She became the face of the fight for truth. In one interview, she declared, "My son's death will not be reduced to another Hollywood tragedy. He tried to warn us. And now the evidence is here. Whoever did this will face the truth." Her words resonated deeply, not just with Malcolm's fans but with parents and families everywhere who had lost loved ones under mysterious circumstances. Pamela wasn't just seeking justice for her son. She was challenging a system that too often dismisses suspicious celebrity deaths as accidents or personal failings. As investigators dug deeper, troubling connections emerged. Malcolm had been negotiating contracts and making moves that some powerful figures reportedly didn't like. He wanted independence, control over his projects, and freedom from industry handlers. For many stars, breaking away threatens not just business but reputations. Some insiders whispered about a warning system in the entertainment world, a pattern where stars who try to step outside certain boundaries suddenly face career sabotage, personal scandals, or worse. Malcolm, it seemed, had stepped on the wrong toes. The toxic substance in his system wasn't just rare, it was symbolic. It suggested sophistication, planning, and intent. This wasn't random. It was calculated. Yet, despite mounting suspicions, gaps remained. No one had been formally charged. Evidence linking specific individuals to the poisoning was circumstantial. Investigators needed more: receipts, surveillance footage, eyewitnesses. Something that could bridge the leap from theory to proof. But Pamela wasn't deterred. She began working with independent experts, commissioning private investigators, and even leaning on journalists who weren't afraid to ask hard questions. Every lead, no matter how small, was pursued. Her persistence unearthed overlooked details. For example, a close friend of Malcolm recalled a strange night just before his death. How Malcolm had suddenly fallen ill after a dinner meeting. Another acquaintance remembered a tense argument between Malcolm and someone in his circle over money. Individually, these incidents seemed minor. Together, they painted a disturbing picture. Perhaps the most heartbreaking element of all this was the growing realization that Malcolm's killer might not have been a stranger. The poisoning pointed to proximity, someone who had access, trust, and opportunity. And betrayal by someone close made the tragedy even heavier. Pamela often said the pain wasn't just losing her son, but knowing he may have suffered at the hands of people he trusted. And the more she spoke publicly, the more others began to come forward with stories of similar patterns in Hollywood. Lives cut short, mysteries unresolved, whispers of foul play dismissed as conspiracy theories. The second autopsy results acted like dynamite under an old foundation. Authorities could no longer ignore the inconsistencies. Media pressure grew, and soon even politicians began weighing in, calling for transparency in cases like Malcolm's. Pamela's persistence had transformed her from a grieving mother into a public figure, a symbol of resistance against silence. And while some in the industry hoped the uproar would fade, the opposite happened. The storm was only gaining strength. Still, questions loomed. Who had orchestrated this? Why? Was Malcolm a direct target, or was he just another name on a longer list? And if it could happen to him, how many other stories were buried under the weight of official reports and sealed documents? The tension was palpable. Every new detail, every fresh testimony, only deepened the mystery. Fans demanded answers. Pamela demanded justice. And investigators were under pressure like never before. The stage was set for explosive revelations, because the deeper they dug, the darker the truths they uncovered. By the mid-2010s, what had once been a buzzing and dominant movement in Memphis rap was showing deep cracks. Yo Gotti, now an established name with major label backing, had turned CMG into a powerhouse brand, but the cost was becoming clearer every day. What looked like victories on the surface, charting singles, big features, sold-out shows, was increasingly overshadowed by betrayals, legal cases, and violent feuds that seemed to haunt every member of his circle. The streets and the industry no longer felt separate. Every diss track had consequences, every beef carried the threat of gunfire, and every new artist signing brought both excitement and risk. Gotti was trying to balance being a businessman and a street general, but in the rap world, those two roles often clash. And when they clash, the results are devastating. One of the biggest moments for Gotti was signing Moneybagg Yo, who quickly became one of the hottest rappers out of Memphis. With his gritty storytelling and authentic voice, Moneybagg was the perfect reflection of the streets. Raw, hungry, and unapologetic. His rise brought new attention to CMG and gave Gotti a second wind in an industry that often pushes out older rappers to make room for new ones. But with Moneybagg's success also came new enemies. Rival crews and jealous artists started questioning the loyalty within CMG. Rumors of internal beef surfaced, with whispers that not everyone under Gotti's wing felt equally supported. Some artists reportedly felt Gotti favored Moneybagg over others, planting seeds of distrust. At the same time, Gotti was trying to expand CMG beyond Memphis, signing talent from across the South. He wanted CMG to be more than a local movement. It had to be a national brand. But this expansion only widened the target on his back. Suddenly, he wasn't just dealing with Memphis beefs. He was stepping into Atlanta, Houston, and other cities where power dynamics were already tense. And in the middle of all this growth came a shadow Gotti could never escape: Young Dolph. By now, the beef between Yo Gotti and Young Dolph had reached a boiling point. What started as subliminal disses had escalated into an all-out war of words and violence. Dolph had built his own empire through sheer independence, refusing to sign with major labels or affiliate with Gotti's camp. He wore his independence like armor, and every time Gotti rose higher, Dolph was there to challenge him. Dolph wasn't afraid to call Gotti out directly. His mixtapes and interviews made it clear. He saw himself as the true king of Memphis, not Gotti. For fans, this rivalry became a spectacle, But for the streets, it was deadly serious. Then came the infamous 100 shots incident in 2017. Dolph's SUV was sprayed with bullets in Charlotte, North Carolina. Over 100 rounds fired, yet Dolph walked away unharmed thanks to his bulletproof vehicle. The streets whispered, and fingers pointed toward Gotti's circle, though nothing was ever proven. Still, the rumors only deepened the bad blood. Later that year, Dolph was shot multiple times in Hollywood, and once again, Gotti's name surfaced in the whispers. Police detained one of Gotti's associates, but Gotti himself denied any involvement. Regardless of the legal outcome, the perception in the streets was set. This wasn't just rap beef anymore. This was war.